Well, we will continue our studies with Christian worldview and biology. Biology is one of the popular science subjects that has drawn much attention today because of evolution. The important question that we are dealing with is, what is the origin of life? Actually, science is learning an old question. The more one discovers about the universe, the more one discovers design. So last weeks we have discussed various aspects of the problems science faces, and especially Christianity and science. Today we will start our discussion a little bit on the DNA. Is it possible for DNA to be evolved? That's the question. That's a technical question. I am not a technician. I am not a biologist or a biochemist. That sort of subject. My subjects are law and political science and theology. Some chemistry also I know, because I did a degree in chemistry also. But from my reading and from my study, DNA, I will say that no scientist has to this day proved that DNA could be evolved. The human DNA cannot be evolved. Actually, in the labs they have tried to create DNA, but they could never get a left DNA, LDNA. They always get an rDNA. And so that's a major problem they face. So the existence and the properties of DNA, supports creationism, both through the teleological argument and by demonstrating evolutionary theories, inability to explain crucial aspects of life. How could DNA be evolved? Because DNA contains the genetic information of any type of life, organism of life. You take the DNA of a single-celled amoeba, it has all the information of that amoeba. So you have to erase all that information about the amoeba and write the information about another, life that is going to be evolved. So it's a question of like, a child has written one page, you have to erase it to write something else. That is not going to be, possible. Anytime production happens, an amoeba produces amoeba, because the cells have the information about the amoeba. That the DNA contains that only. So to evolve a different type of information recorded in it is scientifically never proved. Never proved. So DNA contains a genetic information code which is crucial part of all living matter. Evolutionary theories cannot explain how DNA could come into existence by chance. How could DNA come into existence by chance? Chance can never produce DNA, because DNA contains so much information. Something like thousands of pages of information is contained in that one. And all these systematic information of color and height and weight and functions and everything is recorded in that. How can all this thing be recorded, by a process of accident, is something the science also cannot explain. This teleological quality of DNA, that is, the teleological quality means the systematic organization. That's what teleology. Teleology is, it has a system, it has an order. That systematic order, that quality of DNA is overwhelming. Charles Thaxton believes DNA is the most powerful indicator of intelligent design. Is there any basis in experience for an intelligent cause for the origin of life? Any evidence for an intelligent cause for the origin of life? Yes, that is only what you have. If you study any DNA, you know that behind the DNA there is an intelligent mind that has put down all that. It cannot be evolved. It's the analogy between the base sequence in DNA and alphabetical letter sequence in a book. You take any book, there is an alphabetical letter sequence. If it is to make any sense, just putting letters won't make any sense. You just write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. How can it make any sense? You have to have alphabetical sequence to make sense. If you wanted God, then G-O-D. If you wanted dog, then it should be D-O-G. The alphabetical sequence can be a reality only by intelligent beings behind it. So you need to know whether you are talking about God or dog. It's the same alphabets. There is a D and G and O. But this alphabetical sequence makes the whole difference. So how can the chance make that, it's dog and not God? But intelligence can make it. Intelligence can make it. So that is a problem. The biological evolutionists, very difficult for them to answer it. We can assume DNA is a product of intelligence because it is analogous to human language, which are without exception the product of intelligence and minds. You take any book, no book can come in by accident. It has only 26 alphabets in English language. Your consonants and your syllables, vowel points and everything, only 26 letters. Even with these 26 letters, the reorganization of it takes a mind. But when you come into DNA, how many? So the more complex DNA can be arranged by accident through chance, while the less complex book cannot be produced by accident. Well, it doesn't make any sense. No. So the biological evolutionist has really a problem in explaining. Even if we reject the teleological nature of DNA, its very existence undermines evolutionary theory. Because for DNA to be a reality, there should be certain information to produce the DNA. You cannot have an amoeba without DNA. You cannot have an amoeba without DNA because the DNA, the information in the amoebic DNA is what makes DNA. If it had the information about a dog, then the amoeba won't be an amoeba because it will be a dog. So who will put it? That's the question. The amoeba cannot itself put all the information about the amoeba. So that means that both of them have to be simultaneously together there. So DNA can only be produced with the help of at least 20 different types of proteins. But these proteins can only be produced at the direction of a DNA. That's interesting. To produce a DNA, you need at least 20 proteins. But these 20 proteins can be produced only by the help of a DNA. Since each requires the other, a satisfactory explanation for the origin of one must also explain the origin of the other. Apparently, this entire manufacturing system came into existence simultaneously. That means holy creation. If two things have to be simultaneously exist, where they say that one evolved from the other, but one cannot evolve from the other, both have to be simultaneously exist. So then a creator has to be behind it. And DNA obviously presents one of the most pressing problems of evolutionists. It is an intensely complex substance, yet it must be present in the very earliest form of living matter. How can evolution explain this? They just cannot. The first move of life can be possible only with the help of a DNA. So DNA and life both have to be simultaneously. Then only it can. No one has ever shown how it could arise from non-living chemicals. How then such complex aspect of life like DNA This inability to demonstrate spontaneous generation of life from non-living things is another key weakness of evolutionary theory. It is said by Walter Brown, a scientist, said that's impossible, he said. It's impossible.
The secular scientist? Secular scientist?
It's a secular scientist. Well, they all became believers later, you know. Yeah. You know, if God was not there, Adam and Eve were to be evolved from, suppose, the highest form of, you know, what do you call the monkey, the highest form of chimpanzee or whatever you want to call. The DNA in that one has contained only information about the monkey. The monkey DNA cannot be changed. Because the monkey DNA changed and the monkey ceased to be a monkey. Monkey cannot contain a human DNA. Because the human DNA contains all the information to produce a human. So every time monkey relates with a monkey, the product will be a monkey. Because the DNA is there. So for a man to become, the very moment the man becomes a reality, every cell in it contains the human DNA. So somebody must be there to make man. To make man, what do you need? The human DNA must be there. The human DNA cannot come from anything else. It can come only from a man. Or it can come from a creator who can create it. Because the creator is almighty. He has all the knowledge. So simultaneous production of the DNA and the particular animal or life that contains the DNA is just an impossibility. It's just not possible. So the scientists, they talk about spontaneous generation. Atheistic evolutionists believe that evolution is rational. They must establish the possibility of spontaneous generation. How can spontaneous generation be rational? That's the question. Because rational means there should be somebody to thinking, right? Thinking and reason are related. Can DNA think? That's the question. DNA has all, man's DNA has all the capacity, all the information about thinking. But you take a DNA out of man, can the DNA think? The DNA of man can be think only when it is present in the living man. So how can this spontaneous generation come? You know, all of a sudden there was something and then boom, it came out. This is absolutely nonsense, you know. In order for life to have arisen due to random process, at some point in time, non-living matter must have become alive. That's the whole problem. Non-living matter spontaneously must become living matter. The non-living matter does not have the DNA of the living matter. So how can it be from the non-living, living? With all the informations. So the spontaneous, generation is a nonsense. Alexander Oparin, he has a theory, he is the one who brought the theory of spontaneous generation, that a prebiotic soup gave rise to life. That's his theory, a prebiotic soup. In other sense, there was a biotic soup which contained all that is required to make a DNA. But the thing is, suppose there is a prebiotic soup, don't ask the question who made that. That's because that's, you are creating problem. But suppose there is a prebiotic soup which contains all the chemicals that are necessary to make DNA. But a DNA doesn't have the chemicals only, DNA has information. Now who will arrange these chemicals in that order and then write all the information? It is like you have all the pulp and everything that is required to make paper. Spontaneously paper has to be made and then all the information that is in the book has to be recorded in it. So spontaneous generation is amazing, isn't it? I wish it just happen every day so that we don't have a press or anything. Just all the books will be published by spontaneous generation. Because after all, it has only 26 letters. Much more easy, right? It just doesn't work that way. So Alexander Oparin's theory of spontaneous generation, that a prebiotic soup gave rise to life, is now rejected by most evolutionists. There are actually basically nobody who subscribe to it, because they have this problem. Where the soup has come from, even assuming there was a soup and the soup contained all the essential elements necessary to create an DNA, still the problem is who will write all the information necessary to make an amoeba. Because the amoeba was not there, only the soup was there. So this problem is there. As science progresses, the theory of spontaneous generation becomes less credible. So today, spontaneous generation is not that much taught. Dean Kenyon, a biologist and a former chemical evolutionist, he is a believer, later became a believer, he writes, when all relevant lines of evidences are taken into account and all the problems squarely faced, I think we must conclude that life owes its inception to a source outside of nature. That's what this is. He tried to study, said that, well, outside nature there must be somebody who is responsible for all these things. That's the only logically consistent, coherent, theory you can make. To say that all these things happen by chance or by, spontaneous reactions and all this Big Bang theory and all these things, it's just he said that, no, there must be somebody. You can call him God, anything you want, but there must be somebody outside the nature. There must be an intelligent person or a thing, whatever, there is supernatural intelligence. Some of these scientists won't say it is necessarily God, but they have come to the point to say that, well, we admit there is supernatural intelligence, because the order and the complexity naturally suggest there must be intelligence. Because non-intelligence cannot produce a system. A system cannot be produced. Only confusion can be produced. So Dean Kenyon based his conclusion on 4 premises. First of all, he said the impossibility of spontaneous generation or origin of genetic information. He said that's one thing. Spontaneous origin of genetic information is impossible. Information you take about the smallest single-celled thing. Even that single-celled thing has tens of thousands of information in it. And how systematically all that. Because from it what comes out? Another amoeba, another single-celled being, exactly like it, with all the information copied into it. This process keeps on for thousands and thousands of years. You copy from this DNA, every product comes. It is just like the books printed from the same, the same page you printed from what you call you have made your type and all that, and then from that one, everything comes exactly, like that. So all of a sudden you looked at it, hey, we were printing Ramayana and all of a sudden Bible came in from the same thing. Isn't that wonderful? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Children are born from parents. It doesn't matter even you have 1 lakh children born from the same parents. Today they can find out whether all these children are born from the same parents or a different parent got involved in between. See, that sort of thing. That means that, the printing press of the parents can, print out only things that are in their DNA, whatever the DNA contains, that's all. A new information type has to come, then a different DNA has to get involved. So, Kenyon said that the impossibility of spontaneous origin of genetic information has led him to come to this conclusion. Secondly, he said the fact that all attempts to duplicate the conditions necessary for chemical evolution yield non-biological material. They have tried to create artificially or DNA. They have never created a biological DNA. Means a DNA that is related to any form of life. All that they can have is, a biotic soup. They can add and all these chemicals that are needed in the same proportion and everything, but still a DNA, biological DNA doesn't come. You can call it a chemical DNA, but not a biological. A DNA that is able to produce life. A DNA in which these informations of life is recorded. They have not been. Science has not produced even one DNA. They can produce non-biological, chemical DNA, but that has no life in it. Chemical DNA, you can take a sodium chloride and you can produce a crystal or something, it has no life in it. But to have life, you have to have biological DNA, but that they have not been able to produce. Thirdly, he said, the unfounded nature of the belief that prebiotic conditions encouraged a trend toward the formation of L-amino acids. That's an assumption. No scientist could ever produce it, ever prove it scientifically there was a prebiotic soup. Say, did you see it? Do you find any trace of a prebiotic soup anywhere you done excavations? You have it, you assume it, because without assumption you cannot start, because then you have to explain, how come you have all these things, are so percentage wise arranged in the soup, It cannot. So that's an assumption. It is an unfounded assumption. The whole assumption is unfounded. Nobody has proved it. So it remains an assumption. For geochemical evidence that oxygen existed in significant amount in the Earth's earliest atmosphere, that creates a problem. Because if you have oxygen, what happened? Oxidation takes place. Once oxidation takes place, life cannot, See, whatever chemicals you have, the oxygen is there, the oxidation takes place. So oxidation takes place, what means the organic compounds decompose when the oxygen is there, that's one. You keep a piece of meat there and there is plenty of oxygen. That's why you have to sterilize it, put it in the vacuum. Otherwise, next morning you come, what happens? Start decaying. So, for the evolution to take place, it has to be in a place where this oxygen is there. But then the problem, if oxygen is not there, then ozone will not be there. If oxygen is not there, ozone will not be there. If ozone is not there, then what will happen? Any life generator will be killed immediately by the poisonous rays that is coming from external. So, you have to have oxygen, you have to have ozone, but to protect all these things from not affecting the life, you have to have intelligent person to control it. So Kenyon said that, I cannot believe that. Without the help of an intelligent agency, this DNA could be formed, life could be begun. The existence of oxygen creates an insurmountable problem for chemical evolution. If the Earth early in the alleged evolution had oxygen in its atmosphere, the chemicals needed for life to begin would have been removed by oxidation. But if there had been no oxygen, then there would have been no ozone in the upper atmosphere. Without this ozone, life would be quickly destroyed by the sun's ultraviolet radiation. Ozone and life, therefore, must have originated simultaneously at the time of creation. That's the only conclusion you can. So, Kenyon was an intellectually honest person. He said that, no, I just cannot hold on to the theory of evolution anymore. So at least I have to say that there is an, outside nature intelligence who has controlled this process. The second law of thermodynamics, another major hurdle for evolutionists is the second law of thermodynamics. We had talked about it earlier. The clash between evolution and the second law of thermodynamics is very serious. A. Wilder-Smith, some of you may have read some of his book. I think he has 5 or 6 PhDs in different subjects from the famous universities in Europe. Wilder-Smith, not an ordinary man. He has also chemistry, physics, archaeology, so many subjects he has PhDs. He is no ordinary brain. And this man is a major creationist from Europe. He pointed out some of the implications of the second law of thermodynamics. I quote him. The second law of thermodynamics states that although the total energy in the cosmos remains constant, the amount of energy available to do useful work is always getting smaller and smaller and smaller. See? Evolution needs greater amount of energy because evolution is from a smaller type to the bigger type. So naturally what we need? The energy, available energy for reactions force will be increasing. But second law of thermodynamics says the available energy, total amount will be, the both sides the equation will be there. But the available energy for useful reactions will be coming less and less. So how can the two go? So evolutionists have a real big problem. Because your science theory says that if an amoeba was formed, then from amoeba a single cell to a double celled, you have to have more energy required than for the production of the single cell, double amount. But your theory says that the amount is going down. But evolution assumes requires more. So where are you going to supply it? It's a self-contradictory theory. It's a self-contradictory. It is just like saying that the more you cut an apple into pieces, the bigger the apple becomes. That's what it is. The more pieces you cut, the bigger. Every piece becomes bigger. I said, if every big piece has to become bigger, then there will be more energy available to each piece. Because if the whole apple is giving you 100 calories, if you cut it into 1,000 pieces, for each piece to give you 1,000 calories, with every cutting the calorie must be increasing. But that's not the experience. With every cutting the calories decreasing, the available calories decreasing. So how are you going to explain it? You cannot explain it. I mean, this common sense. It's common sense. So everybody admits, all biologists and all chemical scientists and physical scientists, they all admit that the principle of entropy, that the available useful energy is going down and down and down. They all saying that the sun's light energy, heat energy is going down, the water energy is going down, the all kinds of energy, magnetic energy of the earth is going down and down and down, everything is, all kinds of energy is going down, and finally then we're going to have an energy crisis. But evolutionists say that no, everything is growing higher and higher, which requires more and more energy. Where it comes from, they have no explanation. I wish they say that word's explanation. So, Wilder Smith said the second law of thermodynamics states that although the total energy in the cosmos remains constant, the amount of energy available to do useful work is always getting smaller. Now, this law has great implications regarding the effect of time on the orderliness of the universe. While the evolutionists call for the universe to grow more orderly as evolution progresses, the second law of thermodynamics assures us that order tends to disintegrate into disorder. As it goes, it disintegrates to disorder. Wilder Smith explains the contrast. He says, the theory of evolution teaches when all the frills are removed, just the opposite of the state of affairs demanded by the second law of thermodynamics happens. That's what we just say, just impossible. Just impossible. Thomas Nelson, another great scientist, I think he is from which is a Massachusetts Institute of Technology or something. I have his book. I cannot find it now. I heard is one of his book. The book. What is the name of the book? Anyway, he is trying to prove that evolution is impossible, because he said that you take the ratio at which the earth is losing its gravitational force. It is shown that the earth's gravitational force is decreasing as the days go by. So if you say that, you know the rate at which it is decreasing. And the evolutionists say that the earth is what? 5 billion years old. So if the rate at which it is losing, you multiply, take it back to 5 billion years old, he said that it's impossible. The earth and all the universe will be sucked boom into the sun. Or the gravity of the force, it will so big that the sun will be sucked into it, like a small children will, it's gone. Because it's so big. Because the rate at which it is losing, you go back 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1 million years, 10 million years, 1 billion years, what will be the energy? And now they say that it cannot last for more than certain years because the rate at which it is losing. So he said that he has proved that simply mathematically evolution is impossible. Just accepting all the calculations of the evolutionist, saying that at the rate at which the gravitational force and the energy, they are all losing, if you take it, then stretching it back to the billions of years, you are saying, your theory won't stand. Your theory won't stand. Everything will be burned up because sun's energy will be so much 10 billion years ago. So it's nonsense. That's what William Smith said. You just cannot. The second law of thermodynamics just reinforces creationist explanation of man's origin. It suggests that the universe had a beginning. The universe had a beginning. It has to. In that beginning, the condition would have been the ideal. Then from that ideal, because of sin, it is going down. But there was a time when there was an ideal. That ideal has to be the beginning point. According to evolution, the ideal is yet to come. Yet to come. But that's impossible. Why? Because they themselves say we don't have the energy, the sun is losing its heat and light, the earth is losing its gravitational force, the ozone is going to go away, the oxygen is depleting, everything. So how can you have the ideal state coming? Another 10 billion years? Will it last? No, it cannot last. They themselves say that when a little bit change somewhere happened, all the dinosaurs were killed. See? So that means that any change is going to destroy a life. So there was a time when everything was ideal. That ideal beginning can be made only by a creator. If evolution is right, then going back billions of years, the available energy in the world will be millions of times what it is today. But according to the first law, energy cannot be created or how can that be? So the first law of thermodynamics destroy them again. So if they say that at the rate at which it is losing now, you go back, add up what is lost, add up for a billion trillion years. We had so much more energy. But then your theory says energy cannot be. So that means that, there must be a God who in his creative activity must have started with certain amount of energy, and then the equations change but the energy remains the same. But useful energy decreases entropy. So that your chemical process, evolutionary process cannot progress, it can only digress. So that doesn't make any sense. Secondly, this suggests that the universe began as a highly ordered system. Wilder Smith says the second law of thermodynamics seems to describe the whole situation of our present material world perfectly, and the Bible very clearly confirms this description. For example, Romans 8:20-23 teaches that the whole creation is subjected to vanity or to destruction. Everything tends to go downhill to chaos and destruction as things starts today. The Bible exactly says that the beginning, starting point is excellent, and then it is in the entropy going down, the sin principle, everything contributed. Now, God promises that He is going to make a perfect. See, that only God is required. If you allow this evolutionary process, for argument's sake, you admit it, where the evolutionary process is going to take? If the starting point was amoeba, then the progress should be below amoeba, right? If the starting point is here, it cannot go up because entropy. It has to go down and down and down and down. That's what we see that. Nothing is improving, everything is going down. We say intelligence is improving. No, intelligence, man was using only less than 10% of his intelligence. No man has ever used more than 10% of his intelligence, scientists say. So 90% is not used. So if one man comes up and uses 15% of intelligence, he may do something. That's what happens. But then still is at entropy, because what Adam had only 1/10 or 1/15 or 1/20 of that one is only used by the brightest man, even Einstein. They have taken the brain of Einstein's, and I think the University of Pennsylvania is still studying. I have read in some book to find out why Einstein is so smart. My problem is, if Einstein is so smart and smarter than you, then you're not going to find it out. Because your brain is not big enough to analyze that. Well, maybe Einstein had 20% of the intelligence God created. See, the sin principle, that alone can explain the entropy principle. Things were, the man God created in Genesis, and described in Genesis chapter 3, 2 and 3. 3, the sin came. Genesis chapter 2 was the perfect man. Eden was the perfect place. From Eden, Milton has written the epic poem, Paradise Lost and Paradise Gained, That's a nice one. If you haven't read it, I recommend you read it. Paradise Lost and Paradise Gained. Yeah. So Milton understood this. There was a paradise that was perfect. Now a paradise is going to come that's going to be perfect. But in between there is a lost paradise. It's not an improvement on anything. It's chaos. It's not cosmos. It's chaos. It's not order, it's disorderly. It's not beauty, it's ugliness. Everywhere look at it. So evolution cannot be correct, because according to evolution, everything must be improving. Everything must be improving. As every big bang must be bringing in. Even that big bang is using so much energy. After one big bang, where is the energy left for any constructive creation? It's very, very difficult. The second law of thermodynamics seems to describe the whole situation of our present material world perfectly, and the Bible very clearly confirms this description. Romans chapter 8 verses 22 and 23. You can just read Romans chapter 1 and you can see the moral entropy principle there. How man went down soon to what we see in the city of Bombay today, in Mumbai today. You can see there. Man is inventing new forms of pleasures and sin. Wasn't it yesterday? It was said in the newspaper. I have read in somewhere that, how by accidentally they have found out, they're performing some surgery or something on a woman, and the woman then, shouted, said that, you need to teach it to my husband. Because she was connected some machine somewhere, she was having multiple orgasm, and she said, hey, you need to teach it to my husband. So now they have invented that machine, they're going to sell it in the market, you can, without a husband, you can have orgasms. Well, man increased or decreased? It always, with every invention, it always goes down. What was the name of that man who was invented the AK-47, the Russian?
Alexander Kalashnikov.
Recently there's a statement that, he now really feels, bad that his invention has taken the life of hundreds and thousands of people, innocent lives, Well, even a Nobel, maybe, he started the Nobel Prize at least to make up for the dynamite and all that he has made. But any inventions other than inventions related to medicine or prolonging life or something, other than that, most of the inventions are destructive basically in nature. I like airplane and all those things, and I like them all, yes. But would you rather go back to the old time with the horse cart and the bullock cart? You know, where your world was limited to 20 or 25 kilometers. That was what it is. But everybody knew everybody. I still can't think about time. I walking from my house, 5 kilometers or 8 kilometers to my school, everybody will ask by my name and don't visheshami. Where are you going? What is happening? How is your daddy? How is mommy? And all that. Today I go 100 kilometers, nobody even looks at me. Even the dogs doesn't mind. And what a life, awesome life. I become an impersonal being. Nothing. Before I had, certain amount of dignity, people knew me, they loved me, I had communication, I had, interrelationship and giving and taking and going and smiling and all those things. And we have improved. People don't have the energy to smile. They really don't have the energy to smile. Yeah. I tried to make some students to smile yesterday. I had real difficulty. I was teaching them Navarasam, how to use the Navarasas in preaching, If you know what Navarasas are, in Kathakali and all that, they use it. So I was teaching them. It was so difficult, It's the stereotype look. Whatever you say, big or small. No change of her. Even if you say your father died. That's the sort of thing. Before that, people had emotions, One day an older brother was gone somewhere for 3-4 years, then he returned home. So as soon as he came, he asked his younger brother, how is my parrot? How is my parrot? Oh, the younger brother, is that terrible? Your parrot, was killed by the cat. Oh, he said, you should not have told me straight like that. Should know my feelings. The younger brother, how should I have said it? You should have said that the parrot got out of the parrot cage. It flew on the housetop. We wanted to catch it. Then hit the fly and another spot. We wanted to catch it. He flew. Finally, it flew and flew. It flew right into the mouth of the cat. Oh, I would have some comfort. So he then asked her, how is my mother? So the younger brother said, she climbed up on the house. You got the story. So, people have gone, to such a situation. Man has changed. Man has lost part of his humanity. Anyway, so Wilder Smith is so right to say that the first and second laws of thermodynamics basically gave the cremation of the evolution, Any sensible person cannot. The creationist position then is more in harmony with the true science than the evolutionary theory. Said that. Because you read the Bible, very clearly it is stated. God created a perfect earth, ideal earth, sin ended, the principle of entropy, degeneration, everything start going and it's going and going. And then very soon this earth is going to be destroyed because there will be no energy for it to move further. Then God is going to make another world which is not going to operate on center of gravity or, all those. There will be no sun, no moon, no stars, no sea, nothing. The glory of the face of the Lord Jesus Christ is going to illuminate the universe. Where man probably does not have no hunger, no thirst. It's a wonderful universe where we come back to the perfection of perfections, where God and man exist in harmony. The nature is so ideal. So that perfect state is going to come. The evolutionists can never bring that perfect state. Because Because they don't have the energy to do it. Hey, you don't have the energy to do it. Where are you going to find energy? Because energy cannot be created, right? So where are you going to bring it? So evolution is a nonsense. Another problem with the evolution is the gene pool and the limits of change. The gene pool and the limits to change. Evolutionists believe that no breeding limit exists. That's their assumption. No breeding limit exists. Because evolution keep on progressing. They cannot even predict what will be, 1 billion years later, according to their theory, what will be on the earth. Man may be an extinct species. But who will be walking on the earth? Monkeys? But that's evolution going back. Evolution doesn't allow for going back. It has to be progressive. It cannot be regressive. So what will be? We don't know. We don't know.
They don't know.
They also don't know. They also don't know. Life forms must ultimately break all barriers to change. Then only new species will come. They see mutations as a proof for breaking limits. If time is given, mutations will bring a vast variety of new forms of life, they believe. That's what they think then. Mutations. True, mutations takes place. But the problem is, unfortunately, the evolutionists could never demonstrate the truthfulness of their theory. Mutations takes place but within fixed ranges. Whatever mutations will take to a virus, it remains a cold virus. It remains a cold virus. That's not going to be a virus that will cure your cold. The mutation will take on this virus. They say that there's so many kinds of virus mutation is taking place, so you get it cold frequently again and again. But when is that virus going to become a new mutation where no more cold you suffer? That's when it is going to the positive side. That never happens. Mutations takes place in anything, You have mutations taken place for your grapes. God created grapes with seeds. Because Genesis very clearly says, I have given you trees and plants with seeds as food. He repeated underlines. Only with seeds as food. You have to eat only things that contain seeds. Actually, many of the seeds also you have to eat. Now they are taking the oil from the seeds and all that because they think that what man needs most is in the seeds. And if you eat the whole fruit, then you have no ill effect. The problem is, but they have made by mutation. But have you ever seen a grape wine through mutation give an apple? It's small grapes, big grapes, bright grapes, brown grapes, white grapes, black grapes, but it is grapes. That's a problem. So mutations take place only within the species. I believe God in the beginning created two dogs, a male and a female dogs. What breed it was? I don't know. German Shepherd? Who knows? Great Dane? I don't know. But how many we have now? From these two dogs, how many kinds of dogs have come? Small one, big one, long one, short one, face with strange like bulldog face and there are all kinds of face. But they are all dogs. That's the problem. They are all dogs. So that means that within the dog family you can have mutations, but you cannot, a cow cannot come out of dogs. And how many cows? In the beginning I think God created only two cows, one bull and a cow. Now what all you have? You have Swiss Brown, you have Angus, you have the Hershey's, and you have, you have all, how many kinds of cattle you have? Even in India you have the small mature cows. So many. But they are all cows. They are all cows. So what does it say? You can make variations by certain manipulations, but you cannot get out of the limits. You cannot get. Evolution, to be right, has to get out of the limit. Because from monkey, man has to come. So that mutation can only make a monkey longer monkey, smaller monkey, bigger monkey, maybe you can say that beautiful monkey and less beautiful monkey, longer tail, shorter tails and all those things, but it still remains a monkey. God created only Adam and Eve. How many kinds of people we have now? Even looking here all around, how many kinds of people we have here? There are yellow people, there are black people, there are brown people, there are white people, there are all kinds of long people, short people, all kinds of people, but they are still what? People. They are still people. You never had any other kind of a superhuman or something came out of man. No. No, it's all. So that means that the evolution to be practical, what? From the small amoeba, from that sea of protoplasm, actually an amoeba came, from non-living, living came, from single cell, multiple cells and more complex and compound forms and advanced forms and all that going on. But it never happens. It never happens. So the gene pool, theory is not right because there is a limit to change. You can change, but a limit. Roses are no more roses. The color of rose was rose, but you have white rose, you have pink rose, you have red rose, you have yellow rose, right? But still what are they? The rose. You're not going to make an orchid out of rose. No, you're never going to. So that is their theory. Then the gene pool theory is not working. So unfortunately, evolutionists could never demonstrate the truthfulness of their theory. Mutations takes place but within fixed ranges. Mutations are simply hereditary fluctuations around a medium position. A swing to the right, a swing to the left, but no final evolutionary effect. That's all. It goes this way, it goes this way. But maxima is that one. You can take the pendulum, you can stretch it, how far it go? Only that far. You cannot stretch it any far. You leave it, it comes there. It goes back. Then finally it comes and settles out. That's the problem with the evolutionist, If limits exist, then evolution is a myth. Any kind of limit exists because then evolution stops there. Just like you are driving on a road and then finally the road ends there. What do you have there? It's a river or a big ditch. You cannot go any further. Take your turn and go back. Well, then evolution is gone. When the moment you take a turn back and go, then it is retrospective, evolution. It cannot. So there is a limit. There is a limit. So far we have seen only the limit. I am only 72 years old. In 72 years I have seen many, many animals like you have seen. I have never seen one kind of animal species giving birth to another kind of animal. Never. Chicken, chicken. Ducks, ducks. Dogs, dogs. Cats, cats. Cows, cows. Buffaloes, buffaloes. Elephants, elephants. Never. You can crossbreed some, but stops there. You have ox fellows, oxes and buffaloes, but they cannot have children. They are sterile. You can mix horse and donkey, but that's the end of it. They cannot have children. So that means that mutations have limit. It has a limit. So if limit exists, then evolution is a myth. If a species can only evolve so far before it hits the barrier and is forced to remain the same species, then no macro evolution occurs, only micro evolution. Macro evolution is necessary, then only from a monkey a man can come. Then only from a rabbit a horse can come. Micro evolution is there, you have from a white cow you got a black cow. From a tall cow you got a short cow. That's no evolution. That's the variations within the species. Yes. How many white parents have darker children? Yeah, you can have. Why? Because Adam and Eve had all their gene possibility, I won't say unlimited, but limited, but yet it was, unlimitedly limited. I mean, there's so much possibility was there. That's about that comes. One of your great grandfather may have been, had a Negro hair, and here you come with the Negro hair. He said, "Here, what's it? You saw that child? How come?" No problem. No problem. It's only by God's grace He suppresses the moment of birth. He suppresses some of those possibilities. In Noah's 3 children, from Shem, Ham and Japheth, He didn't suppress. He allowed. Let all the variations be possible. Then God just suppressed by His sovereign will, said that let the limits be limited, so that there will be no family problems. No husband-wife fight. Otherwise there will be problem, So God graciously has done it. So the notion of the gene pool limiting the possible variation of species has troubled evolutionists. Even Alfred Russel Wallace, one of the founding fathers of the theory of natural selection, was troubled by this truth. Mendel's genetic laws clearly states the limits to change. You all have probably studied about Mendel's theory and all that. You have black peas and brown peas and all that, and you breed each other, and then what happens? You only have peas, you never have anything else. And even that's change. He can predict that. First generation, second generation, third generation, what will come. That means, the genes have limitations. You have limitations. So Wallace, aware of Mendel's genetic laws, later in life could not reconcile his theory with the limits of gene pooling. Wallace could not support his own theory in later years. All experiments with the gene mutations have proved the impossibility of breaking species limitation. Whatever change one could make, wheat remains wheat and peas remain peas. We no longer could grow wings on pigs than hens laying cylindrical eggs. A statement from David Noble, I thought it was very nice. I'm saying you can never. Every time you go to collect eggs from a chicken farm, you are not surprised by square eggs and cylindrical eggs and all. You always get eggs the same shape. Yes, because there are limitations. The creationists believe the evolutionary position is opposed to reason, and therefore we reject it. The truth is attested by this truth is attested by the fossil records. They talk about fossils and fossils. In some places, thousands of acres. In America, in the state of Texas, for example, over 1,000-mile long, fossil records are there. The deeper you dig, it's all filled with fossils. And they have digged and examined and examined and examined. They have not found any evidence for evolution. It discourages the evolutionist, Though they are not praying, though they are not believing in God, yet I think they start with a prayer. God, maybe today we will find some evidence. So fossil gaps and intermediate forms, theoretically evolution is impossible. But what about empirical evidence? Is there any evidence to suggest that evolution has happened actually? If evolution has actually happened, then the greatest evidence has to come from the fossils. Because that's where the evidence is there, Because nature has buried, through Genesis flood or other catastrophes, the nature has buried alive tens of thousands of all the species at the same time, When a mudslide happens and people are buried, not only people, cows and elephants and even little amoeba, everything will be. So when you dig it after 1,000 years, what are you going to get? You're supposed to get everything that existed. And sad, they get only what is existing now, or some species like maybe, that is extinct. Dinosaur. Yeah, dinosaur is extinct. So what? Dinosaur extinction simply say that we don't have dinosaur because they are extinct. It's not because they have all the dinosaurs evolved, because dinosaurs don't evolve. They don't. So if evolution has actually happened, the greatest proof will be there. Charles Darwin wrote, in his Origin of Species, I quote, "The geological record is extremely imperfect." And this fact will, to a large extent, explain why we do not find intermediate varieties, connecting together all the extinct and existing forms of life by the finest graduated steps. He who rejects these views on the nature of the geological record will rightly reject my whole theory. He knew that. Darwin knew that if you cannot prove from the fossils that intermediate species existed, and if you cannot prove it, then nobody is going to believe it. Who is going to believe it? How can they believe it? That needs more faith, right? Sorry, we don't have. We only have enough faith to believe that God created. When Darwin wrote these words a century back, fossil records were imperfect, admitted. But now, a century later, what is the situation? So much fossil beds are found covering thousands of miles, but no trace of links ever found. Geological records are thoroughly examined and scrutinized by evolutionary scientists looking for a straw to hang on. But they haven't. So they have to condemn Darwin's theory now. So Darwin's theory, though Darwin is the father of evolution, Darwin's theory nobody believes. It's all gone. Poor Darwin. Yeah. Darwin knew that if evidence of fossils are not produced for intermediary species, he said that my theory will be rejected. And indeed, Darwin, you are right, at least that much sense you had. Yes? He is a prophet of evolution. He condemned his own theory. Yes. One reason why fossil evidences condemn evolution is because the many complex forms appear in the very earliest rocks without any indication of forms from which they could have evolved. That's the problem. Suppose if you are digging and if evolution is true, then what do you expect at the top?
Something close to us.
So close. Then the thing is that order is never found. What you find is everything is everywhere. That's what. Rabbits are at the bottom, man is also at the bottom. Rabbits are at the top, man is also at the top. You take 5 kilos of rice powder, the rice water, that thing, and then liquid formula. The batter, okay. Then you throw some grapes into it, some almond into it, some cashews into it, and then so many fruits. And then what you do? You're going to take it like this, and then you're going to take one layer, one spoon, top layer. You examine it. What do you expect to find? Then second layer. If you have stirred it very well, then you find everything everywhere, right? Everything. But suppose you took 1 liter of that batter and put grapes in it, raisin in it. Then you pour 1 liter. Then you put almonds on it. Then you put 1 liter and put cashews on it. Then you put 1 liter. You put something else there. That's my limitation of fruits, okay? I know a few more. Suppose you put like the 10-15 layers, and then you take your spoon and you start from top. At the top, what do you get? What you put last, right? At the bottom layer, second layer, third layer. This kind of an order never exists anywhere in the world. Even in Texas, I said thousands of acres of these fossil beds are there. What you find there is very interesting. You can find complex and compound, species there at the bottom, at the middle, at the top, the small one at the bottom, which means that they were all existing together and somebody has to stir them down like this. That's the Genesis flood. The bottom of the water came up, and the top, so the whole thing goes like this and then settled. That's what you have. Where is the evolution? Where is the evolution? You find the same type of things there. They have been looking for some evidence to prove evolution. These poor people could not find any proof for evolution. So sad. On the other hand, they have found evidences to prove creation. That they destroy. Like they have the footprint of a dinosaur, and in the center of it the footprint of a man. Not one. A dinosaur is walking and man is putting his feet right where the dinosaur. The two are walking together. You know what these guys have done? They immediately want to destroy it, but there were some creationists, so they have taken some pictures. I have seen those pictures. Some of these creation scientists were showing them. I think Ben Scripture has it. You know, different people have it. But the evolutionists doesn't destroy it. That's against our interest. Because their theory says the dinosaurs lived billions of years before man evolved. So how can they man and have? So they will say that may have been some creatures whose feet looked like man's. Oh, what an explanation. What an explanation. So that's the way it is. They are never, truthful. Creatures without ancestors cannot help but imply special creation, right? Creatures without ancestors. You have to agree they were created, not evolved. Because if they are evolved, where are their ancestors? So they make this picture in the 4th grade students, they will draw the picture, the tree of evolution, they like, oh, the small goes like this. Everybody looks Darwin, Darwin's children. You carefully look at them. They all look like. But where are they? Only in your book, your imagination. Show it the evidence. No, it's missing. They say, we will find. Yeah, you will find. You will find. You will find. So, creatures without ancestors cannot help but imply special creation. Brown has said, the evolutionary tree has no trunk. The evolutionary tree has no trunk. Somebody else said, the evolutionary tree has no trunk and no branches. It has nothing. It's only an imaginary tree. The simple, most embarrassing negative evidence for evolution is the total absence of transitional forces. Brown says, if the Darwinian evolution has happened, the fossil record should show continuous and gradual change from the bottom to the top layers and between all forms of life. Actually, many gaps and discontinuity appear throughout the fossil record. An evolutionary tree with no trunk and no branches could hardly be called a tree at all. The fossil record, the observation of living organisms, and the teleological nature of numerous forms to testify, they all testify the impossibility of gradual change. Yet gradual change is absolutely necessary for evolution. Gradual change is absolutely impossible, but if evolution is to take place, it has to be there. That means evolution never took place. Darwin himself said, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed, which possibly could not have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Darwin said in The Origin of Species, page 189. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which possibly could not have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Yet that's the truth. Many complex systems are existing without any evidence that they evolved from any other. So Darwin's theory gone. This is exactly what the creationists have been claiming for years. The Darwin's evolutionary theory is bankrupt. Reason requires the biologists to abandon evolution and accept creation, but they are not going to abandon the theory for evolution because it is an escapism from responsible moral living. Once they reject evolutionism, they have to accept creationism. That means there is a creator to whom you are accountable for all that you do, and they don't want to be responsible. So it escapes them. It's like cat drinking the milk by closing the eyes and creating darkness. You cannot do that. We are all watching it, baby. You're drinking the milk. You think it's dark? No, it's not dark. That's what the evolution is saying. They are closing their eyes to realities and thinking it is evolution. No, we all see that. No evolution. Then there is what they call the punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium. Evolutionists are not willing to avoid evolutionary hypothesis. It is their religion. So they, while playing down Darwinism, they are embarrassed by it. Now they have come up with a new theory called punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium claims that evolution occurs in spurts, in relatively short period of time. But once in a while, once in a while, they go like this and then, then go millions of years, and one day, boom. That's evolution. That is a very punctuated equilibrium. That they just does like this. Yeah. The short period of time gap, it explains. So they say that Stephen Jay Gould is the exponent of this theory. He himself recognized the untenability of any evolutionary theory that requires gradual intermediate change. He said that's not possible. Gradual evolutionary change is absolutely not possible. Then how are you going to? Then you say that, okay, it exists like this. And then it goes like that. The biggest problem with punctuated equilibrium is that it is not based on evidence. It's not based on evidence. The only advantage of this theory is that it could explain why no empirical evidence. That's all. There is no evidence. Why? Because it doesn't happen. It happens once in a million years. So if it happens only once, just for 5 minutes, then no evidence. So that's the only advantage. You can explain why there is no evidence for intermediary species. Because if it is gradual and consistent, then there will be. But if it is just like this, occasional, once in a trillion years, you're not going to have any evidence. But the question is, where is the evidence that it occurred? So that's the biggest problem, You have no evidence for it. This remains simply a theory. Simply a theory. You can make theories, but unless you can prove it, nobody has ever seen such a thing. The biggest problem with punctuated equilibrium is that it is not based on evidence. The only advantage of this theory is that it could explain why no empirical evidence. Creationism proves to be a much better explanation of man's origin when one takes into account evidences of intelligent design throughout the universe, the complexity and the ingenuity of DNA, the fossil record showing no transitional forms, but rather kind begetting kind, the extinction of species rather than the evolution of new species through natural selection, or punctuated equilibrium, the law of biogenesis, and the first and second law of thermodynamics. All of these together, they have just wiped out. There was a time when it was thought to be so big as a lion, but a bunch of hyenas together attacked the lion, and after a day came, all that could see is just a little piece of skeleton. That's it. Evidences after evidences against evolution. Who will believe? Of course they still say, we believe. You can believe anything you want. You can believe anything. You go to the mental hospital, there are people who believe they are the president of India and America. Some of them are walking outside the mental hospital, that's all. That's all the difference I see. Yeah. I had a friend once, he was in Trichur. He wanted to go to his office. He has to, he can go, take the regular road, then he has to go like this. Three sides of a square he has to go. Otherwise, diagonally he can go, then walk by the veranda of the mental hospital. So one day he was late, so he was going there. So as he started walking, all these veranda, the windows, they were all holding on the windows and looking outside, and they start asking, sir, what time? Sir, some. He got tired. So he told one of them is 3 o'clock. It was only 11 o'clock. So he said that, 3 മണിയായപ്പോൾ 3 മണിയാണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു പ്രാർത്ഥന അഴിച്ചു വിട്ടിരിക്കുക. ഞങ്ങളെ ഇവിടെ പിടിച്ചകത്ത്. They have an eccentric left free who says it's 3 o'clock at 11 o'clock. We sober people are put inside. What a strange world. That's what is happening with this theory. A lot of eccentrics are set free to teach our children a bunch of lies. No evidence, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not one evidence. Yet they teach it. And our children have to believe it. No. So evolutionary theory has come full circle. From an assumption of the gradual appearance of all species to an assumption of virtually instantaneously appearing all species. From the Christian creationist perspective, this is an interesting turn of events. It suggested that the evolutionist faith in evolution is so unshakable. They are willing to believe in the theory no matter what comes. The evolutionists have such great faith in the theory of evolution no matter what comes. That's the problem. The belief that God created all things, including man, in his own image requires the faith. But evolutionary theory requires more faith, since evolution runs contrary to reason and experience. They believe in this theory of evolution because that is the only way to exclude God from their life. That's what it is. We don't want God. Romans 1 says very clearly, they did not want to retain God in their knowledge. They did not want to retain God in their knowledge. Yes. Faith is what counts. Once a professor, every year when the freshers come in, the freshers mean the first year student, they come in, he will destroy the faith of all the students in God. So he will attack Christianity and Bible. Every year he will take some passage and he will just shake every student, and by the time the first semester is over, the foundation of their faith is shaken. So one year he took the passage on the Red Sea, Israel crossing the Red Sea. Oh, he said, that's a bunch of lies. They didn't cross the Red Sea, they crossed the Reed Sea. The reeds were going there. There were only half a feet water there, and they just walked on the reeds and they crossed the Red Sea. So one student sitting at the back said, praise the Lord, hallelujah, praise the Lord, hallelujah. The professor said, what is there to praise the Lord? He said, our God is so great and big. He can drown the whole army of Pharaoh in 1 foot of water. That's what faith is. Professor, your story is going to change my faith. And our argument is not going to change their faith too. Until they say, I want to find the truth about it. If you say, I want to find the truth, I'm going to start reading the Bible with an open mind, then they will find. But if their heart and mind, their intelligence, everything is closed, they're not going to. See, the evolutionary scientists do not have an intellectual problem. They don't. They have a spiritual problem. Evolution is a spiritual problem. They don't want relationship with God. That's what their problem is. So, any amount of evidences you bring before them, they're going to not accept. As I said, some of them sounds like eccentric. Once a young man, educated young man became, mentally a little bit off, and he said, I'm dead. I'm a dead man. So he told his daddy, mommy, I'm dead. I'm dead. So he told his teacher, sir, I'm dead. So they wanted to prove to him that he is not dead. So they have said so many arguments, but he said, I'm dead. So finally, a young doctor took him to the anatomy lab. There they have all these, skeletons and corpses and all that thing, cadaver, they say, cadavers, all there. And, so he took this man's finger and he pricked it with a needle. And what is it? Blood. See, blood comes because you are living. Now look, let's take one of these cadaver. No blood. He had taken every one of them, no blood. Then give me your finger, blood. Now what do you think? I think some dead bodies also bleed. That's my conclusion. Now I know some dead bodies also bleed. Well, so, some of these people are like that. He's not going to convince them. But they're going to say that, but I believe, well, not sober enough. Okay. So we finish our biology with that. You have anything to ask or discuss, will be nice. I like to hear, I'm not an expert in biology, I told you.
So it's advisable to debate?
Well, bring somebody, an expert, because first question they ask is, what's your credential? That's the first question. Sir, what is your credential to talk on this subject? Say, I have no credentials. Then forget about it. We don't want to argue with a man who is not. So credentials are very important when you debate with a person. If it's a theological debate, I can debate. But if it's a biological debate with evidences, then only they will not accept whatever I say. They will just ask, did you read so-and-so's books? I say, no. Well, you shut up. So bring somebody like Ben Scripture or somebody, he can debate with anybody because he has credentials. So that's very, very important, So it's not what you speak, whether it is truth or not, it's also credentials amount. So those who wanted to really debate with evolution and creation, these issues, I will say it's always better to find somebody who has both knowledge and credential. That I always say that, otherwise it will be to our discredit. They will turn around and they will ask this question. They sometimes silence you with the first question itself. Yeah. Even an engineer cannot, even I know Brother A.K. Skaria, A.K. Skaria has one day told me, how, he was debating somewhere. They asked him, you are an engineer, right? What's your credential to argue on biological evolution? This is the question. What's your credential to argue on debate on biological evolution? And I don't have. Now you studied, I've only read. Well, you're not qualified. That's the way it is. This is the way they will take this world. So it's always, when you arrange for a debate, you have the best candidate who has credentials to argue. If you want a theological debate, yes. From a theological, biblical point of view, why evolution is not possible. That I can do. But these people not interested. That's your Bible, they will say. See, that's the problem. Yes. Take a small break.